Eliza Harcourt was dismissed from the creditors' dinner before the figures she had prepared were even opened. For 12 years, the widowed bookkeeper, in the plain grey dress, had kept Hartwell Hall's workers paid, its tenants supplied, and its failing accounts from collapsing, while the estate steward signed his name over her work. The stranger seated beside her father said nothing when she was humiliated, though his questions revealed that he understood more than he admitted. By morning, the winter coal had vanished, the bridge debt had doubled, and 36 families stood days away from losing their homes. Then Eliza discovered that the quiet guest was the Duke who could save Hartwell, and the man who had already decided she was merely useful. When her keys were taken, and a secure position in York offered her freedom, she carried the only ledger that could expose the fraud out of the house. 6 days later, the estate would learn whether the woman it had silenced would return to save it. Eliza Harcourt was halfway through explaining the bridge accounts when Henry Crowther closed the ledger in front of her. The estate steward did it with 2 fingers and an indulgent smile, as though silencing a child who had spoken past bedtime. The gentlemen have heard enough household arithmetic. Mrs. Harcourt. Eliza kept one hand beside the closed book. These are not household figures. Crowther leaned back beneath the candlelight. They concern stone, transport, credit, and labour contracts. Exactly. His smile widened. Matters administered by men with the authority to understand them. Sir Edmund Harcourt looked down the dinner table instead of at his daughter. At 68, he still possessed the silver hair and composed profile of the man whose portrait hung above the mantel. Only his hands betrayed him. They worried the edge of his napkin whenever money was mentioned. "Eliza," he said, "Mr. Crowther has managed Hartwell's business for 20 years. He has signed its business for 20 years. The correction left the room colder than before. Crowther's face did not change, but the thumb resting on the ledger stopped moving. Across the table, their guest watched Eliza with a stillness she had noticed from the moment he arrived. Mr. Adrian Vale had introduced himself as a private investor from Northumberland. He wore no jewelled pin, no bright waistcoat, and no visible sign of rank. His black coat was cut too well for a provincial merchant. However, and the servants responded to him with the caution reserved for men accustomed to being obeyed, Eliza had chosen her plainest dress for the dinner. It was a slate-grey wool gown with a narrow collar, close sleeves, and a bodice she had altered herself after widowhood softened her figure. The fabric was clean and well-fitted, but it had survived too many winters to pretend it was fashionable. Her father had glanced at it before the guest entered and asked whether she owned anything more suitable. She had answered that accuracy was suitable for a creditor's dinner. He had not appreciated the remark. Mr. Vale now looked from Crowther's hand to Eliza's face. "What did you mean by the transport figures?" he asked. Crowther opened his mouth. Eliza answered first. Hartwell was billed for 180 wagon loads of dressed stone during the last quarter. Sir Edmund gave an embarrassed laugh. "My daughter remembers numbers the way other women remember hymns." Eliza did not look at him. The Northern toll gate recorded 72 heavy wagons entering during the same period. Crowther tapped the ledger. The remainder used the river road. The river road has been closed since the retaining wall failed in March. A small flame bent inside one of the candles. No one spoke until Mr. Vale asked. "Who certified the deliveries?" Crowther answered with renewed confidence. "The contractor's agent, the bridge foreman, and my office." "Your office," Eliza said. "Meaning your signature." Sir Edmund set down his glass. That is enough. Eliza turned toward him. Father, the estate borrowed against the autumn rents to pay for stone that could not have arrived. We are not conducting an inquest over dinner. We may be conducting an auction before Christmas. Her father's face lost what little colour it held. Crowther gave a soft, disapproving sigh. This is precisely why serious accounts should not be placed before excitable minds. Eliza felt the insult, but she did not grant it the dignity of a visible wound. She had learned long ago that anger was often used as proof against a woman after reason had failed against her. Instead, she opened the ledger again and turned it toward Mr. Vale. 3 repair payments appeared beneath one another. The contractor names differed. The totals did not. Each payment is £640, she said. A coincidence, Crowther replied. The invoice numbers also end in 17. Crowther's smile thinned. Printers repeat forms. The paper bears the same damaged watermark. Mr. Vale bent closer without touching the page. He did not look surprised by her observation. That troubled Eliza more than disbelief would have. He seemed to be measuring how much she knew and how much Crowther feared she might prove. Sir Edmund rose abruptly. The legs of his chair scraped the floor. Eliza, you have fulfilled your duty as hostess. She remained seated. I was told my duty was to prepare the figures, and you have done so. You have not opened the schedule I prepared. The gentleman will review it. Crowther extended his hand. Eliza placed her palm over the folded schedule before he could take it. No. Her father stared at her. Crowther's voice became very quiet. You appear to have forgotten your position. I remember it exactly. She lifted the papers and stood. I am responsible whenever wages are late, whenever grain is missing, whenever a tenant receives the wrong demand, and whenever this house cannot pay a bill. She looked directly at her father. But I am denied authority the moment responsibility becomes inconvenient. Sir Edmund's mouth tightened. This is neither the time nor the place. It has been 12 years. Father, that was the sentence that wounded him, because it was not spoken loudly. She had returned to Hartwell after her husband's death with enough bookkeeping experience to support herself. Sir Edmund had asked her to remain only until the accounts were brought into order. The work had never ended. The authority had never begun. Crowther rose and moved behind Sir Edmund's chair with the ease of a trusted adviser. Mrs. Harcourt is tired. I am not tired. She has spent too much time among columns and complaints. I spend my time preventing your columns from becoming other people's hunger. Mr. Vale's gaze sharpened. Whose hunger? Eliza turned to him. The Western cottages receive coal through Hartwell's winter account. Crowther said, a charitable custom. Not en obligation. It became an obligation when their rents were raised to include fuel transport. Mr. Vale looked at Sir Edmund. Is that true? Sir Edmund hesitated. Crowther answered for him. The arrangement is complicated. No, Eliza said. It is merely hidden beneath enough signatures to discourage questions. Her father's embarrassment hardened into authority. Leave us. For the first time that evening, Eliza looked toward Mr. Vale for more than an assessment of his intentions. He had heard every insult. He had watched Crowther close the ledger she prepared. He had seen her father dismiss knowledge that might save his estate. Mr. Vale hield her gaze. Something in his expression suggested recognition. He still said nothing. The silence told her what she needed to know. Whatever power he possessed, He had chosen observation over fairness. Eliza gathered her schedule and moved toward the door. Crowther lifted his glass. "Before you retire, perhaps you should remind the kitchen that the coal delivery is due tomorrow." "It will not come." Sir Edmund turned. "What are you talking about? The supplier required payment by noon today." Crowther gave a short laugh. "The payment was sent yesterday." Eliza paused with her hand on the door. "It was entered yesterday." "That is the same thing." "No, Mr. Crowther." She looked back at the closed ledger beneath his hand. "That is what you have taught this house to believe." Mr. Vale watched her closely. "You are certain the coal will not arrive? I am certain the money left Hartwell's account." Crowther raised his brows. "Then there is no difficulty." Eliza met his smile. "I did not say it reached the coal merchant. She left before anyone could order her to remain." In the corridor, the air smelled faintly of beeswax and damp stone. A maid named Sarah waited near the service door with a stack of folded linens. She lowered her voice as Eliza approached. "Did they listen?" "Mao, no." Sarah glanced toward the dining room. "Will the coal truly not come?" Eliza looked past her toward the dark passage leading to the kitchens. "If Crowther paid the merchant, it will. And if he did not, then we open the reserve store, move the nursery fire downstairs, and send word to the western cottages before breakfast." Sarah swallowed. "There is hardly enough reserve for the house." "I know." Eliza carried the schedule to the narrow office she had used for 9 years. It had once been a linen closet. Crowther occupied the formal estate room with its tall windows, locked cabinets, and polished desk. Eliza worked beneath a sloping ceiling beside shelves filled with rent rolls, wage books, and receipts no one remembered until something failed. She unlocked the bottom drawer. Inside lay a thick grey ledger fastened with a worn leather strap. It did not contain the figures Crowther presented to Sir Edmund. It contained what had actually happened. Every rent received, every wage delayed, every wagon recorded at the gate, every invoice whose paper, date, or total, did not agree with the work performed. Eliza placed the dinner schedule inside it and turned to the most recent coal entry. The payment had been removed from Hartwell's account 2 days earlier. The receiving column was blank. Near midnight, footsteps paused outside her door. Mr. Vale stood in the passage when she opened it. Without the dining room candles behind him, he appeared less like a merchant and more like a man temporarily concealing command. "You expected me to defend you," he said. "I expected you to decide whether the truth mattered before it became useful to you." His jaw tightened. "That is a severe judgment." "It is an accurate one." He glanced at the grey ledger on her desk. "Will you show me what Crowther refused to discuss?" "No." "Why not?" "Because you have not told me who you are, what you want from Hartwell, or what authority you believe gives you the right to inspect my work." He seemed almost surprised. Then a faint respect entered his eyes. "What would persuade you?" An honest answer. Before he could give one, the outer bell rang from the gatehouse. Once, then twice. It was the signal for a delivery problem. Eliza took the lamp and walked past him. At the front entrance, the gatekeeper waited with his cap crushed between his hands. Behind him, the drive was empty. "No coal wagon, Mrs. Harcourt," he said. "Only a message from the merchant." He held out a folded paper. Eliza opened it beneath the lamp. The Hartwell invoice had been marked paid. The merchant's account showed nothing received. Eliza read the merchant's message twice before handing it to Mr. Vale. He stood beside her beneath the entrance lamp while the gatekeeper shifted uneasily in the cold. The invoice says, Hartwell paid £212. Adrian said, the merchant received nothing. Eliza turned to the gatekeeper. Did the messenger wait for an answer? Yes. Ma'am, tell him Hartwell disputes the transfer. Not the debt? She looked toward Sarah. Wake Thomas, and have him open the reserve store. Sarah hesitated. Mr. Crowther keeps the store key. No. Eliza reached beneath the narrow belt of her grey dress and removed a small iron key. He keeps the key he believes is the only one. Adrian's eyes moved from the key to her face. Eliza ignored the question in them. Send half the reserve to the Western cottages before dawn. Sarah stared at her. Half. The house can close unused rooms. Sir Edmund will object. Sir Edmund sleeps beneath 3 roofs and owns 6 fireplaces. Eliza placed the key in Sarah's palm. The children in West Row own blankets. Sarah straightened. Yes. Ma'am. She hurried toward the servants' stairs. Adrian folded the merchant's message carefully. You prepared for this. I prepared for interruption. That is not the same thing. At Hartwell. It often is. Crowther appeared at the far end of the hall in his evening coat. His expression remained composed until he noticed the key in Sarah's hand. What is happening? The coal payment did not reach the merchant. Eliza said. Crowther came closer. There must be a delay at the bank. The transfer was supposedly completed 2 days ago. Then it will be corrected in the morning. The cottages cannot burn a correction. Crowther looked at the gatekeeper. You may return to your post. The man glanced at Eliza before obeying. That small hesitation did not escape Crowther. You had no authority to release the reserve, he said. I had responsibility for the people who need it. Responsibility does not grant ownership. Neither does a signature. His gaze dropped briefly to the key. I ordered all reserve keys returned to my office last spring. You ordered the original returned. You made a copy. I kept the house functional. Crowther took another step toward her. You concealed access to estate property. I preserved access after you removed it from the person expected to answer when supplies failed. Adrian moved slightly. Not between them, but near enough that Crowther measured his next words. The household appears to rely heavily on Mrs. Harcourt, Adrian said. Crowther's smile returned. Mrs. Harcourt is devoted to small emergencies. Small emergencies become large ones when ignored. Crowther inclined his head. A merchant's delayed entry hardly proves collapse. No, Eliza said, but it proves the account marked paid cannot be trusted. She turned toward the service corridor. I will review the wage chest before breakfast. Crowther's voice sharpened. That is unnecessary. Eliza stopped. Why? Because wages were prepared yesterday. By whom? My clerk. Under whose instruction? Mine. Then I will review them. Crowther looked at Adrian. You see the difficulty? Mr. Vale. I see several. For the first time. Adrian's tone carried a quiet authority that did not belong to an ordinary investor. Crowther heard it too. His shoulders stiffened. Eliza returned to her office with the merchant's message and locked it inside the grey ledger. She did not sleep. By 4 a.m, she had written 3 lists. The first divided the remaining coal among the house. the cottages, and the dairy. The second moved kitchen work into 2 rooms instead of 5. The third delayed every non-essential household expense for 10 days. At Dam, the courtyard filled with the scrape of shovels and the low voices of men loading the reserve carts. Eliza stood beneath the archway, wearing her same grey dress beneath a dark wool cloak. Thomas, the senior footman, approached with a slate. West Row has received 12 sacks. Not 12. He checked the slate. 16. Ma'am, the 4 cottages nearest the quarry hold larger families. He corrected the figure. The dairy has 6 sacks. Give them 4. The milk room will turn cold. Move the churns into the inner room and hang the spare curtains across the passage. Thomas nodded. He did not ask whether Crowther had approved. Adrian watched from the stone steps. The morning light revealed silver at his temples that the dinner candles had hidden. He had dressed without assistance and wore mud on his boots, which meant he had already walked the yard. Every person came to you, he said when the last cart departed. They came to the person who would answer. Crowther is the steward. Crowther is the signature. Adrian looked toward the workers closing unused shutters. You knew which rooms could be abandoned, which cottages had children, and how much coal the dairy could surrender. I know what fails first. Because you have seen it fail before, because I prevent it often enough to recognize the shape. A stable boy ran across the courtyard. Mrs. Harcourt. Mr. Bell says the kitchen men have not received their envelopes. Eliza's expression changed. Wages were never distributed after breakfast. Late wages created fear before they created hunger. Where is Mr. Crowther? In the estate room. Eliza crossed the courtyard at once. Adrian followed without asking permission. Crowther's clerk stood outside the estate room with a wooden wage chest at his feet. The chest was open. Inside lay rows of sealed paper envelopes. Eliza counted them. 23. The clerk looked frightened. There should be 31. I prepared what Mr. Plains de Heroine. Crowther instructed. Which names are missing? The clerk handed her a list. Thomas Bell, Sarah Price, the kitchen porter, 2 laundry maids, the gatekeeper, the stable boy's father, and Matthew Reed, the tenant representative who had questioned the bridge repairs at the autumn meeting. The omissions were not random. Every missing person had carried information to Eliza during the previous year. Crowther opened the estate room door. This corridor is not a marketplace. Eliza held up the list. 8 wages are missing. They are being withheld against advances. None of these people took advances. You cannot know that. I record every advance because I deduct them from the household total. Crowther looked at his clerk. You gave her the list, she asked. Sir, you answer to me. The young man lowered his eyes. Eliza crouched beside the wage chest and opened one envelope. It contained the correct amount. She opened a second. It contained less than the figure written outside. Adrian bent beside her. How much is missing? 4 shillings. From one envelope. From every envelope prepared for the lower servants. If the pattern continues. Crowther's face hardened. You have no permission to open private wages. They are not private until they are delivered. Eliza opened 3 more. Each was short by 4 shillings. The reduction had been made evenly, carefully, and in an amount small enough to be blamed on counting error. Adrian rose. How much would that produce across the estate? Eliza calculated before Crowther could speak. Just over £12 this quarter. A trivial sum. Crowther said. To you. Eliza stood. To a laundry maid. 4 shillings decides whether her mother buys lamp oil. Crowther folded his arms. You are dramatizing clerical errors. No. Eliza placed the opened envelopes in a row. A clerical error changes shape. She touched each one. This repeats. Adrian looked at Crowther. Who sealed them, my clerk? Under your instruction, Crowther's pause was brief. It was still long enough. Eliza saw Adrian notice it. Crowther turned on her. This disorder began because you encouraged servants to bypass the proper chain. The proper chain has taken their money. You are making an accusation without proof. I am identifying a pattern. From 4 envelopes. From coal. Wages. Bridgestone. And a payment route no one will explain. Crowther stepped close enough that his shadow covered the wage chest. You have spent too many years imagining that familiarity equals authority. Eliza did not move. And you have spent too many years hoping no one would compare your signatures with the results. Sir Edmund entered in his dressing coat, flushed from being summoned before breakfast. What fresh disturbance is this? Crowther answered first. Eliza has opened sealed wages and accused my office of theft. I said the money is missing. That distinction is cowardice. No. Adrian said. It is precision. Sir Edmund looked at him in surprise. Adrian picked up one envelope and placed it beside the written wage list. The amount outside does not match the amount within. Crowther's tone became smooth again. An unfortunate error by a junior clerk. 8 workers were excluded entirely. Eliza said. Sir Edmund rubbed his forehead. Pay them. Then, with what money? She asked. The wage account. The wage account was reduced yesterday by the same office that marked the coal invoice paid. Her father looked toward Crowther. The steward did not answer immediately. Eliza felt the room shift. It was not belief yet. It was the first crack in convenience. Adrian turned to her. You keep another record. Crowther's eyes moved sharply toward him. Eliza said nothing. The schedule at dinner was prepared from figures Crowther's office controls. Adrian continued. But your conclusions came from somewhere else. Crowther gave a dismissive laugh. She keeps notes. Adrian looked only at Eliza. Not notes. His voice lowered. A complete account. Eliza met his gaze. He had seen too much to be deceived further, but he had not yet earned access. Perhaps. Crowther stepped forward. Any private record concerning Hartwell belongs to the estate. No, Eliza said. The paper belongs to me. The information does not know. The truth does not belong to the man who hides it. Sir Edmund struck the table with his palm. Enough. Silence followed. Adrian placed the opened wage envelope in front of him. With respect, Sir Edmund, this is the first useful conversation Hartwell has had in years. He turned back to Eliza. Show me the record. Crowther does not know how to alter. Eliza did not answer Adrian in the estate corridor. Crowther stood too close. Sir Edmund looked too frightened. And the clerk had already learned that speaking truth near authority carried a price. She closed the wage chest and handed the list to her father. Pay every missing worker before noon. Sir Edmund stared at the names. With what funds? The silver service in the blue dining room has not been used since my mother died. Crowther looked offended. You propose selling family plate to cover an accounting delay. I propose paying labour before displaying inheritance. Sir Edmund flinched. But he did not refuse. Eliza turned to Adrian. You asked to see my record. I did. You may see one page. Crowther stepped forward. She has no right to conceal estate information. Adrian's expression cooled. You have spent the morning explaining that her records carry no authority. Crowther stopped. You cannot now claim ownership merely because they may expose yours. The steward looked at Sir Edmund for support. Sir Edmund said nothing. That silence was weaker than courage. But it was the first silence that did not serve Crowther. Eliza led Adrian back to the narrow office beneath the sloping ceiling. She left the door open. He noticed, "You do not trust me. I know almost nothing about you. You know I came to evaluate Hartwell. I know you allowed my father to believe that." Adrian removed his gloves. "Is there a difference? There is always a difference when a man chooses a smaller title than the one he owns." His gaze sharpened. Eliza unfastened the leather strap around the grey ledger. I knew you were not an ordinary investor. That is not the same answer." "No." She opened the ledger to the coal account. "It is the answer you have earned." The page held 3 columns in Eliza's compact hand. The first recorded money approved. The second recorded money removed. The third recorded goods or services actually received. Adrian studied it without reaching across her. You separated authorization from result. Because Crowther combines them. She pointed to a payment from the previous month. This amount left Hartwell for timber repairs. And no timber arrived. Some arrived. How much? Enough to support the invoice if no one counted the southern roof. The dairy stalls. And the tenant barn as 3 separate deliveries. Adrian traced the lines with his eyes. The same timber was charged 3 times. The same quantity. To different accounts. Yes. He looked toward the open door. Who else knows? No one knows the full pattern. Why not take this to your father? I did. What happened? He asked Crowther whether there was an explanation. And Crowther provided one. He always provides one. Adrian turned another page. Eliza stopped his hand before the paper moved. 1 page. He looked down at her fingers resting against his. She withdrew them at once. That was our agreement. His expression changed. Not with irritation, but with recognition that she expected her boundaries to survive his curiosity. You are right. He stepped back. Eliza closed the ledger. Now tell me who you are. Adrian stood beside the small desk. Suddenly too large for the room. My full name is Adrian Edmund Vale. She waited. The title attached to it is Alderwick. The ticking clock on the shelf seemed to grow louder. Eliza had heard the name since childhood. The Duke of Alderwick controlled the Northern Credit Consortium, several transport roads, 2 stone quarries, and enough land to make Hartwell appear like a neglected garden beside a kingdom. Her father had not invited an investor. He had invited the man whose decision could determine whether Hartwell survived the week. Eliza did not curtsy. You sat at our table under a false introduction. I used my family name. You allowed us to believe it was your entire identity. Yes. Why? Because people explain less when they know a duke is listening, and women are easier to dismiss when they believe no one powerful will object. The words landed harder than she intended. Adrian accepted them without defense. I should have spoken. You should have decided that before you needed my ledger. I did not understand your position. You understood enough to watch it. He looked toward the corridor where servants carried the wage chest downstairs. You are not merely keeping accounts. No, you are directing supplies. Vargas. Labor. And tenant relief. Yes. Without a title. Without authority. Those are not always the same. They become the same when something goes wrong. Adrian studied her face. What do you want from Hartwell? The question surprised her. No one had asked it in 12 years. Her father asked what she could save. Crowther asked what she could explain. The servants asked what she could repair. No one asked what she wanted. I want responsibility and authority to occupy the same chair. That is not a small demand. It is not a demand. She fastened the ledger. It is the condition under which I continue. A knock sounded against the open door. Thomas stood outside, breathing hard. The coal merchant is here. Mum. Eliza looked at the clock. He came himself. Yes. And Mr. Crowther, in the receiving room. Adrian put on his gloves. May I attend? You may listen. The coal merchant waited with his cap in both hands. Mr. Pritchard was a broad man, accustomed to weather and poor excuses. Crowther stood near the window, wearing the expression of someone inconvenienced by honesty. Sir Edmund had joined them. On the table lay the unpaid invoice and a bank draft bearing Crowther's signature. Mr. Pritchard pointed to the endorsement. That draft was never presented to my bank, Crowther said. It was sent through an intermediary. Which intermediary? Hollis and Crane. The merchant shook his head. I have never dealt with them. Eliza felt Adrian become still beside her. Hollis and Crane had appeared twice in the bridge accounts. Once as stone suppliers, once as transport agents. Now they stood between Hartwell and the coal merchant. Where is the original draft? Eliza asked. Crowther's jaw tightened. The intermediary retains it until settlement. Then Hartwell has paid no one. The money left our account. To Hollis and Crane, she said. For transfer. For what service? Crowther looked at Sir Edmund. These commercial arrangements are not normally explained before servants. Eliza turned to Thomas. You may wait outside. Thomas did not move. She saw the conflict in his face. If you leave, he said quietly. They will say none of us heard it. Crowther reddened. Sir Edmund looked shocked. Adrian did not. Eliza understood what the household had begun to understand. The matter was no longer a private disagreement among their betters. Missing money had entered kitchens, cottages, and wage envelopes. It belonged to every person expected to endure the consequences. Thomas may remain, Eliza said. Crowther stared at her. You do not decide who attends estate business. No, Adrian said. But I do. The room fell silent. Sir Edmund looked at him. Crowther's expression emptied. Adrian removed a signet ring from his inner pocket and placed it beside the bank draft. The Alderwick crest caught the pale morning light. My name is Adrian Vale, he said. My office is Duke of Alderwick, and Hartwell's proposed credit now falls under my review. Sir Edmund gripped the edge of the table. Your Grace. Crowther bowed too late. Adrian did not acknowledge either gesture. He looked at Eliza. Continue. She hated the relief that moved through the room when power confirmed what reason had already shown. She would not waste it. Eliza set the coal invoice beside the bridge payment. Hollis and Crane received money intended for 2 unrelated suppliers. Crowther recovered his voice. They are a clearing agency. Then their fee should appear separately. It was included. Where? In the quarterly summary. The summary you prepared. Yes, the one my father signed, without the receiving records. Sir Edmund looked down. Crowther's restraint began to fracture. You are constructing misconduct from ordinary practice. Eliza took a clean page and wrote 3 headings. Source. Root. Beneficiary. She placed Hartwell beneath the first, Hollis and Crane beneath the second. The third remained empty. Who owns the agency? She asked. Crowther said nothing. Adrian moved toward the table. Answer her. I would need to consult the registration papers. Eliza looked at the merchant. Can you supply Hartwell for 6 days if half your invoice is paid today, mister? Pritchard considered. Half today and the balance guaranteed in writing. Sir Edmund gave a helpless laugh. We have no available account. Eliza opened the household expense book. The conservatory restoration was funded yesterday. Crowther said. That project was approved months ago. It can wait. The glass has been ordered. Then cancel it. There will be a penalty. Less than the cost of losing the dairy herd and closing West Row. She turned to Adrian. You asked what should be done before the creditors arrive. He watched her. I did. Guarantee the coal balance for 6 days. Crowther scoffed. You cannot instruct a duke. Eliza kept her eyes on Adrian. I am not instructing him. She closed the household book. I am telling him the price of keeping Hartwell alive long enough to learn whether it deserves saving. Adrian looked at Mr. Capper. Pritchard, you will have my written guarantee. The merchant bowed. Then the wagons will leave before noon. Sir Edmund exhaled as though the crisis had ended. Eliza knew better. The coal was only the first visible failure. Adrian picked up the draft to Hollis and Crane. Mrs. Harcourt, what would you examine next? Crowther's face revealed fear before he concealed it. Eliza saw it. So did Adrian. The bridge accounts, she said, because whoever stole the coal payment learned the route there first. The bridge accounts occupied 3 locked cabinets in Crowther's formal office. By noon, he had produced every ledger except the one Eliza requested. The contractor's receiving book is being rebound, he said. Eliza stood beside the long table with Adrian across from her. Where in York? Which binder? Crowther adjusted a stack of invoices. I would need to consult my correspondence. You sent away the only record showing whether the stone arrived. The binding had deteriorated. 3 days before the creditors' meeting. Crowther's eyes narrowed. Paper does not arrange its damage around your suspicions. No. But men sometimes arrange repairs around discovery. Adrian opened one of the payment books. The entries were orderly, evenly spaced, and useless without the receiving record. How many firms supplied the bridge? He asked. 7. Crowther replied. Eliza looked at the invoices. 4 of these addresses are the same warehouse. Crowther did not glance down. Many firms share premises, and 3 use the same clerk's hand. You are not a handwriting expert. I am a woman who has opened their letters for 6 years. Adrian looked toward her. You handled the correspondence, I sorted it, before Crowther decided the estate room required greater privacy. Crowther gave a thin smile. Mrs. Harcourt confuses proximity with expertise. Eliza selected 3 invoices and placed them side by side. The dates are 10 weeks apart. She pointed to the final line of each page. The ink skips in the same place because the nib was damaged. Crowther's composure tightened. That proves one clerk prepared invoices for several companies. It proves the companies are less separate than the accounts suggest. Adrian turned to Crowther. Who owns the warehouse? I do not carry commercial registers in my head. You remembered the binding was in York. The steward's eyes cooled. I remember matters relevant to my duties. Eliza opened the transport summary. Hollis and Crane appears here again. Adrian read the line. They received a handling fee for every load. Yes. And the contractor received payment for transport as well. Yes. Crowther moved between them and the cabinet. Duplicated fees are common when subcontractors divide obligations. Eliza looked at him. Then show us the subcontract. It is with the receiving book. In York? Yes. With the unnamed binder. Crowther's patience broke for a fraction of a second. Do you intend to repeat every answer until it sounds guilty? No. Eliza closed the summary. I intend to keep asking until one answer can be verified. A knock sounded at the door. Crowther's clerk entered carrying a sealed letter. For Mrs. Harcourt. Crowther reached for it. The clerk stepped around him and gave it directly to Eliza. The action was small. Its meaning was not. Crowther looked at the young man as though memorizing an offence. Eliza recognized the seal of Miriam Bell, the owner of Bell and Daughters Textiles in York. She had written to Mrs. Bell 3 months earlier after Crowther removed her access to the rent contracts. At the time, she had wanted proof that another life remained possible. She had not expected the answer to arrive during the week Hartwell began collapsing. Open it, Crowther said. Eliza slid the letter into her pocket. It is personal. If it concerns estate business. It is not. You just told us proximity does not create authority. Adrian lowered his eyes, almost concealing approval. Crowther turned to the clerk. Bring me every key assigned to Mrs. Harcourt. The room went still. The clerk looked at Eliza. Crowther repeated himself. Now. Sir Edmund appeared in the doorway before the young man could move. He had changed into a proper coat, but the effort had not restored his dignity. Henry tells me confidential books have been removed. No books have been removed, Eliza said. Crowther gestured toward the invoices. She has spread restricted accounts across my office and allowed an outsider to question internal contracts. Adrian's expression hardened. Sir Edmund noticed and corrected himself. His Grace is not an outsider. He arrived as one, Eliza said. Her father looked at her with exhausted irritation. This is not about the Duke's introduction. No, it is about your refusal to accept limits. My limits have always been clear. She tapped the invoices. I cannot authorize payments. I cannot dismiss contractors. I cannot demand bank records. I cannot attend creditor meetings unless someone needs me to explain a total. Crowther folded his hands. Yet you believe yourself entitled to all confidential material. I believe no one should be blamed for accounts she is forbidden to examine. Sir Edmund rubbed his forehead. No one is blaming you. Crowther spoke gently. Not yet. Eliza looked at him. The threat was offered in the language of concern. That was how Crowther preferred his cruelties. Adrian set down the payment book. What happens when the creditors arrive? Crowther answered. They will review the debt and determine whether Sir Edmund can continue. And if he cannot, the estate will be placed under temporary administration. Whose Crowther hesitated. A qualified purchaser has expressed interest. Eliza felt the pieces align. Which purchaser? That information is confidential. Does the purchaser own Hollis? And Crane Crowther's face became unreadable. Sir Edmund looked between them. What is Hollis and Crane? The firm that received your coal payment. Eliza said. And fees from the bridge contracts. Crowther turned to Sir Edmund. Your daughter is constructing a conspiracy because she resents the structure of this house. I resent being expected to hold up a structure designed to keep me beneath it. Eliza, her father warned. She did not soften. For 12 years, I found the money when wages were short. I negotiated with merchants when your name could no longer secure patience. I delayed rent increases. Crowther recommended. I kept West Row supplied after the quarry reduced winter work. Sir Edmund looked ashamed. Eliza continued because shame without consequence changed nothing. You called that devotion when it benefited you. You call it interference now that I ask where the money went. Crowther took a ring of keys from his pocket. Sir Edmund, this disorder ends when access is restored to its proper channel. Her father stared at the keys. Then he looked at Adrian. Your Grace, surely this investigation can proceed without upsetting the entire household. Adrian's voice remained controlled. Your household is already upset. I mean without encouraging servants to challenge lawful authority. Authority that cannot survive a question is not lawful enough for my investment. Crowther's expression hardened. You came to evaluate Hartwell's credit, not redesign its hierarchy. I came to decide whether Hartwell can be trusted. Adrian looked at Eliza. At present, Mrs. Harcourt is the only person whose information has matched the result. The recognition should have pleased her. Instead, Eliza felt the old danger beneath it. Useful women were often praised at the precise moment more work was about to be placed upon them. With respect, she said, that does not solve my position. Adrian turned fully toward her. What would written authority? Sir Edmund stiffened. Eliza. She faced her father. If you expect me to answer the creditors, I require access to every contract, power to suspend questionable payments, and a signature recognized by the bank. Crowther laughed once. You are asking to replace the steward. I am asking not to serve as his shield. Her father's face closed. I will not surrender Hartwell's management under pressure. You surrendered it years ago. The words struck cleanly. Sir Edmund reached for the door frame. Crowther stepped beside him. This is what comes of allowing private grief to become public ambition. Eliza went very still. Her husband's death had been used against her before, but never so openly. Crowther continued in a sympathetic tone. You returned here vulnerable. Sir Edmund gave you shelter. In return, I gave him 12 years of unpaid expertise. You were family. Then family should not have required my silence as rent. Adrian's voice cut across the room. Crowther, you will not speak to her that way again. Eliza looked at him. The defense came late. It still mattered. Crowther bowed slightly. Your Grace. Adrian turned to Sir Edmund. Grant her temporary access until the meeting. Sir Edmund stared at the floor. No. The answer shocked everyone except Crowther. Sir Edmund drew himself upright. Henry has served this family for 2 decades. Eliza is your daughter. Adrian said. She is also angry. Eliza felt something inside her become quiet. Not broken. Finished. Her father held out his hand. Your keys. The clerk remained frozen near the wall. Eliza removed the key to her narrow office. Then the household account key. Then the key to the old records cabinet. She placed each one in her father's palm. Crowther watched with restrained satisfaction. Eliza kept the key to the grey ledger's drawer hidden beneath her belt. Crowther noticed the movement. All of them. She met his chaser. The final key belongs to me. Nothing in this house belongs separately to you. Eliza reached into her pocket and removed Mrs. Belle's letter. She broke the seal. The offer was better than she had expected. Chief bookkeeper, private rooms, a salary larger than Crowther's clerk received, authority to hire 2 assistants, a partnership review after 1 year, train fare enclosed. Eliza read the final line twice. The position remained hers if she arrived in York by Monday morning. She folded the letter. Something does. Sir Edmund looked frightened now. What is it? A position with Belle and Daughters Textiles. Crowther's satisfaction vanished. Adrian said nothing. Eliza was grateful for that. She did not want permission disguised as generosity. Her father's voice weakened. You applied for employment, I secured a future. And you intended to leave without telling me. I intended to tell you when Hartwell no longer required me to prevent its daily collapse. Crowther recovered quickly. En excellent arrangement. He gathered the bridge invoices. Mrs. Harcourt will find commercial bookkeeping more suited to her temperament. Eliza looked at the accounts disappearing beneath his hands. When is the creditor meeting? Sir Edmund answered reluctantly. Saturday, Crowther said. Friday. Adrian turned. You changed it. The creditors have limited patience. You moved it forward without Sir Edmund's approval. Crowther smiled. His authorization was included in the correspondence. Sir Edmund looked confused. I signed no such letter. You signed the weekly packet. Eliza understood the counterattack. Crowther had shortened the deadline and hidden the authorization among routine papers. Friday left less than 2 days. She returned to her narrow office. The door remained unlocked only because Crowther had not yet collected the final key. Eliza placed the grey ledger inside her leather travelling bag. She added 2 dresses. Her husband's small watch. Mrs. Belle's letter. And the train fare. Adrian stood in the doorway. Are you leaving tonight? The morning train. Hartwell needs you. She fastened the bag. Hartwell needs authority attached to the work. I can require your father to grant it. Then it would be your power lent to me. She faced him. Crowther would wait until you left. My father would resent the humiliation, and every decision I made would remain a favour that could be withdrawn. Adrian stepped into the room, then stopped before coming too near. What are you asking me to do? Nothing. The answer wounded him more than anger would have. Eliza put on her cloak. For once, Your Grace, I am refusing responsibility for a system that refuses to recognize my right to act. She lifted the leather bag containing the only complete account of Hartwell's failure. On the desk, she placed her train ticket where her father, Crowther, and the Duke could all see it. When the creditors arrive, she said, the woman who understood these books will be in York. Eliza left Hartwell before sunrise, in a hired cart paid for with the money Mrs. Belle had enclosed. No servant was ordered to accompany her. No family carriage was offered. Sarah carried the leather bag to the front steps, while Thomas secured Eliza's small trunk behind the driver. The grey operations ledger remained against Eliza's side beneath her cloak. She would not place it where another person could take it without passing through her hands. Sir Edmund did not come downstairs. A message delivered through his valet said the cold had aggravated his chest. Eliza had heard the same explanation whenever her father wished to avoid a consequence he had helped create. Crowther appeared beneath the entrance arch as the driver gathered the reins. You understand that removing estate records may expose you to legal action. Eliza settled onto the cart bench. I created the ledger on paper. I purchased. The contents concern Hartwell. The contents record transactions your office failed to explain. That distinction will not impress the creditors. I am not taking it to impress them. Crowther rested one hand on the cart rail. You imagine a textile widow in York will protect you from a duke? A creditor board. And your own father. Eliza looked at his hand until he removed it. Mrs. Bell offered work. What you are offering is fear. His smile tightened. You will return when the novelty of independence has passed. I have supported this house for 12 years. Eliza drew her cloak more firmly around herself. Independence is not the novelty. Mr. Crowther, being paid for it will be. Thomas concealed a smile by turning toward the trunk straps. Crowther's eyes moved to him. You will report to my office after breakfast. Thomas straightened. Yes, sir. Eliza knew the punishment would not wait until breakfast. Every servant who had carried information to her was now marked. She could remain and continue absorbing those consequences for them. That was how Hartwell had kept her for 12 years. Someone suffered, and Eliza made herself indispensable to the repair. She looked at Sarah. The kitchen expense book is accurate through yesterday. Sarah nodded. Fighting tears. The reserve coal will last 6 days if the upper west rooms remain closed. Yes. Mum, do not reopen them because a guest complains. No. Mum, Crowther said. You no longer direct this household. Eliza turned toward him. Then nothing I have said should trouble you. The driver clicked his tongue, and the cart rolled away from Hartwell Hall. Eliza did not look back until they passed the final stone pillar. The house stood pale against the morning, its windows dark and perfectly aligned. For years she had mistaken its dependence on her for belonging. The mistake hurt more than leaving. The station at Halden Cross consisted of one brick waiting room, a ticket window, and 2 exposed platforms bordered by frost-stiff grass. Eliza arrived 40 minutes before the York train. She purchased her ticket even though Mrs. Bell had already paid the fare. The act mattered. The ticket in her glove belonged to a decision no one else had authorized. She sat on a wooden bench beneath the station clock and placed the leather bag between her boots. A porter carried her trunk to the platform. York train is running 12 minutes late. Mum, thank you. The delay did not feel like rescue or warning. It was simply 12 minutes. Eliza opened Mrs. Bell's letter and read the terms again. Chief bookkeeper. Private rooms above the East Office. Authority to hire 2 assistants. A salary paid directly into an account under her own name. Partnership review after 1 year. The language did not call her devoted, dutiful, or useful. It named the work and priced it. A carriage stopped outside the station. Eliza folded the letter before Adrian entered the waiting room. He wore the same dark coat from the previous morning, though mud marked the hem and his hair had not been arranged with its usual care. He saw the ticket in her hand. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Adrian removed his hat. I came to apologize. Not to stop me, no. The answer unsettled her more than an order would have. He remained near the door rather than taking the bench beside her. I told myself that silence at dinner allowed me to observe Crowther without warning him. Eliza waited. That was partly true. He continued. The rest was cowardice dressed as strategy. She looked at him fully. Men of rank apologized in private when they wished to preserve power in public. Adrian did not ask her to make his confession easier. I saw your father dismiss you, he said. I saw Crowther close the book beneath your hand. I understood that something was wrong, and I decided learning more was more valuable than stopping it. It was more valuable to you. Yes. The agreement came without qualification. Eliza folded Mrs. Bell's letter along its existing crease. You recognized the injustice only after it threatened your investment. At first. And afterward. I recognized that Hartwell had taught everyone to depend on you while denying you the right to define that dependence. She looked toward the rails. That knowledge arrived late. I know. The station clock moved 1 minute forward. Adrian took an envelope from his coat and placed it on the far end of the bench. Eliza did not reach for it. What is that? A written statement that my review found no misconduct by you. I did not ask for your protection. It is not protection. His voice remained even. It records that the coal payment, wage shortages, and bridge discrepancies existed before you were granted access to my review. Why? Because Crowther will accuse you after you leave. He already has. Then the statement gives Mrs. Bell something independent to place before anyone who questions your employment. Eliza picked up the envelope. The seal was unbroken. You are helping me leave. I am removing one obstacle I helped create. She examined his face. What will happen to Hartwell? The creditors will meet tomorrow morning. Crowther, said Friday. He moved it again. Her fingers tightened around the envelope. Why he learned that I sent a man to York to examine Hollis and Crane. Did you find the owner? The registration lists a Nathan Crowther. Eliza closed her eyes briefly. Henry's brother. Yes. It confirmed the route she had suspected. It did not yet prove that Hartwell's money had benefited Henry Crowther personally. That connection remained inside the grey ledger. Adrian looked toward the leather bag. I will not ask you to surrender it. You need it. Hartwell needs it. That is not the same thing. No. A distant vibration passed through the rail. The porter opened the platform door. York train approaching. Adrian stepped aside so Eliza could pass. She carried the leather bag herself. On the platform, steam appeared beyond a bend in the tracks. The wind lifted the edge of her cloak. Adrian stood several feet away. His hands empty. You could order the train held. She said, I could. You could tell my father that his debts depend on my return. I could do that as well. You could purchase Bell and Daughter's credit and make my position disappear. His expression changed with something close to pain. Yes. Eliza met his eyes. And you will not? No. Why? Because an exit is not freedom when a more powerful man quietly closes every road except the one leading back to him. The train whistle sounded. Eliza looked down at her ticket. For the first time since Adrian entered Hartwell, she saw not merely a powerful man learning to value her, but a man attempting to surrender the advantage that had allowed him to misvalue her safely. It did not erase his first silence. It made another future imaginable. Mrs. Bell expects me by Monday, she said. I hope she recognizes what she has hired. She recognized it before meeting me. Adrian accepted the rebuke. The train emerged around the bend, black iron and white steam filling the narrow view. The porter moved toward Eliza's trunk. Then running footsteps sounded behind the station wall. Thomas burst through the gate without a coat, his breath breaking in the cold. Mrs. Harcourt? Eliza turned. He carried several folded pages tied with kitchen string. Crowther's red dismissal mark crossed the top sheet. What happened? He stopped the wages again. Thomas bent forward, struggling for breath, and he sent notices to the northern tenants. Adrian came closer, but did not take the papers. Eliza untied the string. 36 names filled the first page. Beside each was a cottage number, rent total, and order to vacate immediately after the creditor vote. Every family had paid through the quarter. At the bottom, Henry Crowther had written that vacant possession would improve the northern land's sale value. The train entered the station. Its brakes screamed against the rails. Doors opened. The porter reached for Eliza's trunk. She stood between the waiting carriage and the list of people Hartwell intended to erase. The porter reached for Eliza's trunk as the York train released a cloud of steam. "Leave it," she said. Adrian remained several feet away, while Thomas struggled for breath beside the gate. Eliza looked from the open carriage door to the list of 36 families. When were these delivered before dawn? Thomas said. Crowther sent his clerk with 2 quarrymen. Did they enter the cottages? No. Ma'am. They nailed the notices to the doors. Every rent total matched the amounts in Eliza's grey ledger. None of the families owed Hartwell a penny. Crowther wanted the northern land empty before the sale. The conductor called for passengers. Mrs. Bell's letter remained inside Eliza's glove. York offered wages, rooms, authority, and a future no Harcourt could withdraw. Hartwell offered the work that had consumed 12 years while denying her name. Eliza could board and be free of Crowther and her father. The whistle sounded again. She folded the notices and placed them beside the ledger. "Please take my trunk back from the porter," she told Thomas. Adrian's expression changed, but he did not reach for her ticket. "Are you returning to Hartwell?" "I am returning to the meeting." "That is not the same answer. It is the only one I am giving." Eliza watched the York train leave without her. The offer still existed. She had delayed her exit, not surrendered it. "The telegraph office opens at 7. She said. Adrian glanced toward the clock. "I can send a message." "I will send it." He accepted the correction. Eliza wrote that an emergency creditor meeting required her testimony and that she would reach York the following evening unless Mrs. Bell withdrew the offer. She signed with her full professional name. Mrs. Eliza Harcourt, Bookkeeper. The clerk named the price. Eliza paid before Adrian could open his purse. Outside, his carriage waited beside her hired cart. "Thomas rides with us," Eliza said. "Of course," Adrian replied. Thomas climbed onto the rear-facing seat with the notices on his knees. Eliza kept the leather bag beside her. "Tell me everything Crowther did after I left." "Thomas," said Crowther, dismissed him before breakfast. Sarah lost her position for distributing reserve coal. The gatekeeper was threatened with eviction. 2 laundry maids were told their missing wages had become loans to Hartwell. And my father, Thomas, lowered his eyes. Sir Edmund signed the notices. Eliza felt the answer like pressure beneath her ribs. "Did he read them, Mr. Crowther placed them among the creditor papers. Adrian's mouth hardened. "The same method he used to move the meeting." "Yes," Eliza said. "My father signs what allows him not to know." She opened the grey ledger as the carriage crossed the heath. Coal money entered Hollis and Crane through winter supplies. Bridge fees entered the same firm through transport. Tenant charges entered through Northern Improvements. 3 sources. 1 route. 1 beneficiary hidden beneath different descriptions. Adrian removed a folded memorandum from his coat. "My man confirmed that Nathan Crowther owns Hollis and Crane. Henry's brother." "Yes. Does it show Henry receiving money?" "No." Eliza looked back at the ledger. "Then it proves access and family benefit." but it does not complete the case. What does? She turned to the quarterly totals. Every third month. The same sum left the bridge account before entering Sir Edmund's emergency fund. That makes Crowther appear to support Hartwell, Adrian said. Only until the next line. The money left again under Sir Edmund's standing authorization. It returned to Hollis and Crane as a consulting fee. He moved stolen money through my father's account. Adrian studied the sequence. To make Sir Edmund's signature part of the route. If anyone found it, Crowther could blame the debt on my father's incompetence. Thomas looked horrified. Then, his brother's company could appear to be the only buyer willing to save Hartwell. Eliza took a blank sheet from the carriage desk. She drew 3 columns. Source, route, beneficiary. Beneath them, she wrote the repeating amounts. She did not add every suspicious invoice. 1 chain, she said. If I present 10 irregularities, Crowther will offer 10 excuses. If I present this, he must explain why the same money crossed the same route under 3 names. Adrian watched her. Hartwell survived because you think like this. Hartwell survived because people below the dining room kept doing work, men above it called minor. Thomas looked down. But pride had replaced fear in his face. The carriage struck a rut. Adrian reached toward the ledger, then stopped. May I hold the page steady, the edge only? He placed 2 fingers on the lower corner. It was the first time his power entered her work by permission. Crowther may accuse you of theft, he said. He already has. My review can prevent him from taking the ledger. Prevent its removal. Then sit down. Adrian met her eyes. You do not want me to present it. The room already believes truth matters, only when spoken by a titled man. She closed the ledger. If you explain it, Crowther loses. If I explain it, the system that protected him loses. Adrian leaned back. Then I will make certain you are heard. Do not make them agree with me. I could. I know. He accepted the rebuke. I will not. The carriage entered Hartwell shortly before 10. Workers stood idle near the stable yard. Sarah waited beside the kitchen door with her cap removed and a bundle at her feet. Eliza ordered the carriage stopped. Mr. Crowther said I stole the coal. Sarah whispered. You followed my instruction. He said, your instruction had no authority. The old wound returned with perfect clarity. Responsibility without authority. Labour without standing. Blame without a voice. Eliza took Sarah's cold hand. Wait in the kitchen with Thomas. Crowther appeared at the main doors with 2 hired men behind him. Mrs. Harcourt, you are no longer authorized to enter the estate offices. Eliza continued up the steps. I am entering the creditor meeting. His gaze dropped to the leather bag. You will surrender Hartwell property. The ledger remains with me. Take it, Crowther told the men. Adrian stepped from the carriage but did not come in front of Eliza. He looked at the men, and neither moved. Raise your accusation before the creditors, Adrian said. After she shows them what the record contains. Crowther lowered his voice. You are allowing a resentful dependent to destroy her father. Eliza climbed the final step. No. She opened the doors herself. I am giving my father one last chance to stop helping you destroy everyone else. Voices carried from the great hall. The creditor table was already full. Sir Edmund sat at one end with a sale agreement beneath his hand. The chairman asked whether any objection remained. Eliza entered with the grey ledger against her chest. Crowther hurried after her. "Mrs. Harcourt has no standing in this meeting," he said. Eliza walked to the empty place at the centre of the table. "Then give me 5 minutes. Decide whether standing belongs to the person with a chair or the person who knows where your money went." The first creditor raised his hand to vote. The creditor's raised hand remained suspended above the table. Eliza set the grey ledger down before the chairman. 5 minutes, she repeated. Henry Crowther moved beside Sir Edmund. This woman removed private estate material after her access was revoked. Eliza unfastened the leather strap. "This ledger was written by me, maintained by me, and purchased with my wages when Hartwell still paid them." Crowther gave a cold smile. "Private notes are not evidence." "No." She opened to the first marked page. "A pattern that survives 12 years is evidence." The chairman, Mr. Weatherby, lowered his hand. "You have 5 minutes." "Mrs. Harcourt," Crowther objected. "She has no recognized office." Weatherby looked toward the sale agreement. "Neither will anyone else if the estate is liquidated before noon." He turned to Eliza. "Proceed." Adrian took an empty chair along the wall. He did not approach the table. He did not announce her importance or explain her work. He simply sat where everyone could see that the Duke of Alderwick had chosen to listen. Eliza placed 3 slips of paper beside the ledger. Every disputed payment followed the same route. She pointed to the first column. Money began in an ordinary Hartwell account. Tenant, winter supply funds, bridge, repair credit. She moved to the second column. It passed through Hollis and Crane under a different description each time. Crowther folded his arms. "A legitimate clearing agency." Eliza looked at him. "Then you will be able to explain its service." "I have explained it repeatedly." "You have named it repeatedly." "That is not the same thing." A murmur moved around the table. Eliza turned one page. "This payment began as £212 owed to the coal merchant. It left Hartwell 2 days before the delivery. It never reached the merchant. Instead, it entered Hollis and Crane as a winter transfer fee." Crowther said, "A banking delay." Eliza turned another page. "This payment began as £640 for dressed bridgestone. It entered Hollis and Crane as transport handling. The contractor charged Hartwell separately for the same transport. Duplication is not fraud." "No." She met his eyes. "Repetition with a beneficiary is—" Crowther's face tightened. Eliza opened the ledger to the quarterly accounts. Every 3rd month, part of the bridge fund was moved into Sir Edmund's emergency account. Her father looked down at the paper bearing his initials. Crowther seized the point. "There. Sir Edmund approved the transfers." Eliza nodded. "He approved the first line." She moved her finger downward. The same money left again under standing authority hidden in the weekly packet. It returned to Hollis and Crane as a consulting payment. Sir Edmund's voice was unsteady. "I never hired them as consultants." Crowther leaned toward him. "You signed the authorization." "I signed what you placed before me." "And that absolves you?" "No," Eliza said. The room turned toward her. "It does not." Sir Edmund stared at his daughter. Eliza did not spare him because truth had finally become uncomfortable for someone else. "My father allowed convenience to replace judgment. He signed papers he did not read. He accepted reports because examining them would have required him to admit that Hartwell was already failing." Crowther's confidence returned. "Then Sir Edmund is responsible. He is responsible for neglect." Eliza placed her palm beside the ledger. You are responsible for designing the neglect to pay you. Crowther laughed. Pay me? You have shown no payment to my name. No. She turned to the final section. You placed the benefit in your brothers. The room fell silent. Adrian did not move. Eliza lifted the memorandum, confirming the registration of Hollis and Crane. She did not present it as a second proof. She placed it beside the ownership entry copied into her ledger during the carriage ride. Nathan Crowther owns the agency. Weatherby looked at Henry. Your brother, a distant relation. Adrian spoke from the wall. The registration identifies the same mother. Crowther turned toward him. You promised not to present her case. I confirmed a public registration. Adrian's voice remained controlled. The case is hers. Eliza continued before Crowther could redirect the room. The northern tenants were served notices this morning. The notices claim vacant possession will improve the land's value. She opened to the rent roll. Every family named has paid through the quarter. A tenant representative near the far end leaned forward. Everyone, 36, Crowther said. The northern land cannot support its current obligations. It supports them. Eliza pointed to 12 months of receipts. The rent income did not fall. It was diverted. Weatherby studied the totals. To whom? Eliza drew her finger down the centre route. Hollis and Crane. And after the sale, the same firm has prepared to purchase the land through a quarry company. Crowther struck the table. That is speculation. Eliza did not raise her voice. The stone invoices list the quarry company's address. The tenant notices increase the land value for vacant purchase. The coal and bridge payments weaken Hartwell's cash position. The creditor meeting was moved forward twice, using signatures concealed among routine papers. She looked around the table. The system failure is not accidental. It creates a distressed estate, an informed buyer, and tenants too frightened to resist removal. Weatherby turned toward Crowther. Did you move the meeting with Sir Edmund's authorization? Did he know the date had changed? Crowther looked at Sir Edmund. Sir Edmund finally answered, without searching another man's face. No. Crowther's tone hardened. You cannot accept the word of a frightened old man and a resentful widow over formal documents. Eliza closed the ledger halfway. You called me excitable when I noticed the bridge totals. You called me confused when the coal payment vanished. You called me ambitious when I asked for access. You called me resentful when I refused responsibility without authority. She looked directly at the creditors. Those words explain why he underestimated me. They do not explain the money. Weatherby touched the page. How was this ledger maintained daily entries when goods arrived? Wages were distributed. Rents were received. Or merchants sent notice. Can the dates be verified? The original receipts are fixed to the relevant pages. Eliza turned several sheets carefully. Different ink had faded at different rates. Paper edges had yellowed unevenly. Sir Edmund's initials appeared beside the monthly totals. Weatherby examined them. Are these yours? Sir Edmund leaned closer. His face seemed to age as he recognized his own hand. Yes. Crowther stepped toward the ledger. Initials confirm totals. Note accusation. Eliza placed one hand over the open page. He stopped before touching it. The totals are the accusation. She compared the gate record with the stone charges. 180 wagon loads were billed. 72 passed the only open road, Crowther said. Some travelled before the closure. The invoices are dated after it. The dates may have been copied incorrectly. Then the transport fees should vary. They do not. Crowther looked toward the creditors. This is bookkeeping theatre. Eliza met his contempt with perfect calm. No, this is the moment bookkeeping becomes consequence. The clock in the hall began striking 11. Weatherby asked, "Can Hartwell survive without immediate sale for 6 months?" Eliza said. Crowther scoffed. With what money? Eliza turned to a clean page she had prepared in the carriage. Suspend all payments to Hollis and Crane. Recover the undelivered bridge advances. Preserve the current tenant contracts. Sell the unused London property rather than productive northern land. Renegotiate the coal balance over 2 quarters. Close decorative expenditures until wages are current. Weatherby studied the plan. "And who administers it?" Crowther answered at once. "A qualified steward appointed by the creditors." Eliza looked at Weatherby. "A new title will not repair a system that still separates knowledge from authority. What do you require? Complete access to the accounts. Recognize signature power within the agreed budget. Authority to suspend unexplained payments. Independent audit review. And protection for tenants whose rents are current." Sir Edmund whispered. "You would take control of Hartwell." Eliza turned toward him. "No, I would take responsibility only where control is written beside it." The chairman conferred quietly with the other creditors. Crowther stood isolated near the sale agreement. For the first time in Eliza's memory, no one asked him to explain what the room should believe. Weatherby removed the unsigned sale order from beneath Sir Edmund's hand. The liquidation vote is suspended. A breath moved through the hall. Sarah covered her mouth near the doorway. Thomas lowered his head. Crowther's face emptied of colour. Weatherby looked at Eliza. "The creditors will accept a 6-month restructuring on one condition." Eliza waited. "You will administer it with the authority you have just described." Eliza did not accept the creditor's condition at once. She turned the proposed agreement toward herself and read every line. Crowther gave a bitter laugh. She has just demanded authority, and now she hesitates to take it. Eliza continued reading. "I hesitate whenever a man calls an obligation a gift." Weatherby watched her with new attention. "What concerns you? This paragraph places estate damage under the Duke of Alderwick's continuing direction." Adrian rose from his chair by the wall. "That language was not requested by me. It is standard protection for the principal guarantor." Weatherby said. Eliza looked at Adrian. "Will your investment remain if that sentence is removed?" "Yes." "Even if I reject every personal connection between us?" The hall became completely still. Adrian did not look toward the creditors before answering. "Yes." Eliza placed the agreement before him. "Then remove it." Adrian drew a line through the paragraph and signed beside the alteration. "The authority is hers," he said. "My guarantee will not make it mine." Weatherby added his initials. Eliza resumed reading. She changed the resignation clause from permission to notice. She added independent access to bank correspondence. She required that tenant contracts remain protected while rents were current. She added authority to appoint a separate auditor who did not report to Sir Edmund. Crowther. Or Adrian. Only then did she put down the pen. "I will administer the restructuring for 6 months." Crowther stared at her. "You believe a room full of signatures can make you capable?" Eliza looked at the ledger between them. "No. The work made me capable. The signatures prevent men like you from pretending otherwise." Weatherby called 2 attendants from the corridor. "Mr. Crowther, your authority over Hartwell's accounts is suspended immediately." Crowther drew himself upright. "You cannot remove a steward on the word of a widow carrying private notes. We are removing you because estate money passed through a company controlled by your family while contracted goods failed to arrive. Weatherby closed the sale folder. The creditors will pursue recovery through counsel. Crowther turned towards Sir Edmund. You approved every payment. Sir Edmund's face had gone grey. I approved what I refused to examine. That makes you responsible. Yes. The answer surprised Crowther into silence. Sir Edmund looked at Eliza. It does not make her responsible for saving me from it. Crowther's control finally broke. You would place your estate in her hands after she humiliated you before tenants and servants. Sir Edmund looked around the hall. The people he had treated as background were watching him without deference. No, he said slowly. I placed it in your hands because you protected me from embarrassment. Eliza has merely stopped protecting me from the truth. Crowther moved toward the ledger. Thomas and the gatekeeper stepped into his path. Neither touched him. Neither needed to. The steward looked at the men whose wages he had withheld and understood that his office no longer shielded him. Adrian spoke to the attendants. Escort Mr. Crowther to the east sitting room until the creditor solicitor arrives. Crowther pointed at Eliza. She will fail within a month. Eliza met his anger without raising her voice. Then the failure will appear beneath my own signature. Crowther had no answer to a woman willing to carry accountable authority. He was led from the hall without confession, apology, or another opportunity to reshape the facts. Weatherby signed the restructuring order. The other creditors followed. Sir Edmund's signature came last. His hand shook above the page. Eliza did not steady it. When the ink dried, Weatherby placed the document before her. Managing Director of Hartwell Estate Operations. The title sounded unfamiliar in the old hall. Eliza signed beneath it. Her name did not appear as witness. Daughter. Vidov. Or assistant. It stood beside the authority required to perform the work. Sarah began to cry near the doorway. Thomas quietly took her hand. Eliza closed the grey ledger. Before anyone celebrates, 8 workers remain unpaid. Weatherby almost smiled. What do you propose? The silver service will cover the shortage today. Sir Edmund nodded. Sell it. The London house will be listed before the Northern land. Agreed. The eviction notices will be withdrawn in writing before sunset. Sir Edmund looked toward the tenant representatives. Agreed. Eliza turned to Sarah and Thomas. Your dismissals are cancelled if you choose to return. Sarah wiped her face. Under whose authority? Eliza looked at the signed agreement. Mine. Sarah smiled for the first time that week. Adrian remained near the wall until the creditors began leaving. He did not approach while people thanked Eliza. He did not transform her victory into proof of his judgment. He waited until the hall had emptied, and she was alone with the agreement, the ledger, and the work ahead. Mrs. Bell will expect an answer, he said. She already has one. Eliza showed him the telegram receipt. I told her I may arrive tomorrow evening. Adrian's expression did not change, though disappointment moved behind it. You intend to leave. I intend to decide after I receive the final contract. He looked at the signed agreement. You have it. I have 6 months of authority. I do not yet know whether Hartwell deserves 6 years of my life. That is fair. She studied him. You could remind me that your guarantee made this possible. It did. You could ask for gratitude. I could. You will not. No. Eliza waited. Adrian understood that she expected more than restraint. He took a breath. At dinner, I watched Crowther diminish you, because observation served my purpose. I told myself that intervention would warn him. The truth is that his contempt did not cost me anything. He placed both hands on the back of an empty chair. When the cost became visible, I began behaving as though recognition erased the silence that came before it. It does not. I know. He looked directly at her. I am sorry without asking you to make the apology comfortable. Eliza felt the difference between regret and accountability. Regret wanted relief. Accountability accepted that relief might never come. What will you do differently? She asked. I will not conceal information to test you. I will not use my title to end a disagreement. I will not interfere with authority granted under your contract. I will not call control protection. And if you leave for York tomorrow, my guarantee remains. Eliza folded the agreement. Those are the conditions under which you may ask to court me. Adrian's surprise was quiet and almost boyish. May I ask now? You may ask. May I court you not today? He accepted the answer without bargaining. The offer remains. It must remain even if my answer becomes no. It will. 6 months later, Hartwell's accounts balanced for the first time in 14 years. The false bridge contracts were cancelled. Recovered advances paid the winter wages and restored the northern road. No tenant family was removed. The London house was sold, while the productive land remained with the estate. Sir Edmund attended every monthly review and signed nothing he had not read. He never regained the authority he had surrendered through neglect. Eliza allowed him dignity, but she no longer confused dignity with control. Crowther lost his position and his claim to any estate commission. The creditors began civil recovery against Hollis and Crane, and the commercial solicitor carried the remaining matter beyond Hartwell's walls. Eliza did not follow the case for vengeance. She followed the recovered money until it reached the people who had earned it. Mrs. Bell kept her promise as well. She offered Eliza a future partnership between the York Textile Company and Hartwell's wool operation. Eliza accepted as an equal contracting party. The agreement gave her income and influence beyond her father's estate. Adrian visited only when invited. He wrote before arriving. He disclosed the purpose of every financial proposal. He never entered an operations meeting without Eliza's permission. Their courtship grew through work discussed honestly, dinners without performance, and silences that no longer concealed strategy. On the final afternoon of the 6th month, Eliza sat in the former steward's office. The room no longer belonged to a man who controlled access. Its cabinets were labelled. Its contracts were open for audit. The grey ledger rested on a shelf behind her desk. A knock sounded at the door. Adrian waited on the other side. He did not enter when she looked up. Eliza. Yes. May I come in? She considered the man who had first valued her only after the system began failing. Then she considered the man who had spent 6 months respecting authority that did not belong to him. You may. Adrian entered and closed the door without locking it. He stopped before her desk. I have not come with a bargain. Good. I have come to ask whether your answer has changed. Eliza stood. My conditions have not. I would not trust an answer that required them to. She stepped around the desk. When he lifted his hand, he waited. Eliza placed her fingers in his by choice. My answer is yes. He kissed her only after she moved closer. Outside the office, Hartwell continued without needing her to disappear inside its work. For the first time, Eliza belonged there because she possessed the power to leave. Could you trust a man who corrected the system after once remaining silent while it diminished you?